The sunlight streamed through the crystal chandeliers of the banquet hall, scattering tiny rainbows across the polished marble floors. I, Amara, had dreamed of this day for as long as I could remember. Every detail had been painstakingly planned: the flowers, the food, the music, and most importantly, the vendors who promised to make everything perfect. Nothing could go wrong, or so I thought. Marisol, my wedding planner, had been a blessing. She had spent months helping me bring this vision to life, anticipating problems before they even appeared. And Daniel, the pastry chef, had designed my wedding cake like a work of art. Every delicate sugar flower and every layer reflected the joy I had imagined for this day. I had envisioned smiling faces, laughter, and the warmth of family surrounding me as I walked down the aisle. But life has a way of twisting dreams into nightmares, and sometimes the danger comes from the people you trust the most. It started subtly, almost innocuously, with a comment from my distant cousin. "I heard Daniel's studio had some trouble recently," she said casually. I shrugged it off. Sabotage, impossible. Daniel had an untarnished reputation. Still, a shiver ran down my spine, the kind you feel when a warning whispers in the back of your mind. That night, as I did a final check on every detail, Marisol pulled me aside. Her eyes were wide with concern, her hand gripping my arm. "Amara, someone tampered with the cake. The recipe was altered, and the florist's delivery truck, it's delayed. I think it was intentional." My heart dropped. My stomach churned. Who would do something like this? I whispered, fear threading through my voice. And then I saw her, my mother, Neha. She stood at the edge of the hall, her expression calm, almost admiring the Daker, but her eyes held a glint of satisfaction that made my blood run cold. My mother, the woman who had raised me, who had promised to support me, had crossed a line I never imagined. I wanted to confront her right then, scream until she admitted the truth, but I held back. I didn't know the full extent of what she had done, and I needed to see it for myself. Deep down, a fire ignited in me, burning brighter than the panic or betrayal, a need for justice, a need for revenge, and a determination that she would never predict. The wedding morning arrived, like a storm hidden beneath the sunlight. Everything looked flawless to the outside world, the linens perfectly pressed, the flowers bursting in colors I had chosen with love, and guests arriving in their elegant attire. But behind the scenes, chaos was quietly unfolding. Daniel worked furiously on the cake, his hands steady but his face tight with concentration. The layers that should have been delicate and stable were collapsing, frosting refusing to hold its shape. Marisol coordinated frantic calls to substitute missing flowers and adjust the timeline, moving with the precision of a seasoned conductor, yet even she looked worn, the edges of panic showing beneath her professional calm. I wandered through the hall, trying to breathe, trying to maintain composure for the guests who had no idea what was happening. And then I found my mother. Neha stood near the entrance, a picture of calm elegance, smiling as if she had done nothing wrong. But I had already seen through the veil. Her sweet maternal mask had slipped, revealing the truth. She had orchestrated this chaos. I pulled her aside, my voice trembling, though I tried to keep it steady. "Mom, why?" Her eyes darted away, guilt warring with pride. I just wanted everything to be perfect. I thought I was helping." She murmured, voice fragile. "Helping." I spat, the words bitter on my tongue. "You call ruining months of planning, humiliating me in front of everyone, helping." The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Every memory of her support, her advice, every hug I had ever trusted, now felt poisoned. She had crossed a line I never thought she would. Tears blurred my vision, but they quickly gave way to a cold, simmering anger. I couldn't let her win. Not today, not ever. I vowed then, with every fiber of my being, that she would never underestimate me again. For the rest of the day, I played calm and composed, a smile on my face while secretly observing her every move. Every slip, every flicker of arrogance, every tiny gesture became a note in the symphony of my revenge. I let her believe she had the upper hand, while I began to weave the beginnings of a plan, small, subtle manipulations that would make her realize far too late that I was not a victim, but a strategist. By the evening, as the reception began and guests marveled at the salvaged decorations, the restored cake, and the seemingly flawless event, my mother smiled outwardly, but I could see the cracks forming beneath her polished exterior. She thought she had won, but she had no idea that the real game had only just begun, and I held all the pieces. Weeks had passed since the wedding, but the sting of my mother's betrayal still lingered, a quiet hum beneath the surface of my daily life. The wedding had been salvaged, the cake fixed, the flowers replaced, and the guests none the wiser. But I knew the truth, and I couldn't let her think she had gotten away with it. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about immediate retaliation. It was about precision, patience, and timing. I started subtly, planting tiny disruptions in her plans, small, almost accidental slips that made her look disorganized in front of her friends and colleagues. Invitations she had boasted about were quietly withdrawn, her carefully curated social image beginning to fray at the edges. The whispers started slowly, barely audible, but they spread, and I watched the tension grow behind her forced smiles. Next came the professional side. My mother had invested heavily in a boutique network of vendors, bragging endlessly about her exclusive connections. She had shared contracts, partnerships, and insider information openly. Thinking I was oblivious, I wasn't. I began redirecting opportunities to vendors. I trusted the very same people she had tried to manipulate, quietly building my own reputation while hers began to falter. Every success I quietly claimed was a dagger to her pride. The final act of my revenge was strategic and public. During a high-profile vendor expo, I unveiled a collaboration with Daniel and Marisol, a flawless showcase of event planning that dazzled everyone in attendance. Media, photographers clicked their cameras, journalists gushed over the creativity, and vendors whispered about the innovation behind it all. My mother sat in the audience, smiling politely, but the cracks were undeniable. She realized, perhaps too late, that while she had tried to sabotage me, I had turned her schemes into the stage for my triumph. That evening, as I walked through the empty halls of the expo, I felt a rush of vindication. Every careful maneuver, every subtle redirection had worked. I hadn't resorted to cruelty or public shaming, but the impact was undeniable. My mother's ego, once untouchable, had finally learned the fragility of underestimating me. And yet, amidst the thrill of revenge, I felt a quiet satisfaction, deeper than anger, a sense of empowerment. I hadn't just survived her betrayal. I had transformed it into something powerful, something that she could never take away. I was no longer just her daughter. I was my own person, capable of turning the hurt inflicted by those closest to me into strength, strategy, and ultimate triumph. The dust had finally settled. My wedding was over, the chaos orchestrated by my mother long past, and yet the echoes of her betrayal lingered in my mind. I could have wallowed in anger, let it consume me, but I realized that the sweetest revenge wasn't humiliation or spite. It was rising above her, thriving despite her interference, and claiming my own victory without stooping to cruelty. In the weeks following the wedding, my life flourished. My collaboration with Daniel and Marisol drew recognition and praise, opening doors I had never imagined. Every event we organized became a testament to creativity, precision, and resilience, a quiet reminder of what determination and intelligence could achieve. Meanwhile, my mother, once so confident in her control, began to see the consequences of her actions. Opportunities she had tried to monopolize slipped away, partnerships faltered, and whispers of her past meddling surfaced in social circles she had once dominated. The realization that her sabotage had only strengthened me left her visibly shaken, a lesson she had underestimated. I decided to face her directly, not out of malice, but to confront the shadow of our shared history. We met in a small cafe, far removed from the grandeur of wedding halls and public scrutiny. Her eyes were red, her pride softened by humility, an unfamiliar look for a woman so accustomed to control. "I was wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I knew better. I thought I was helping. I didn't realize the damage I was causing." I studied her for a long moment, weighing years of love, hurt, and disappointment. "You hurt me," I admitted softly, but I survived. I grew stronger, and now you see that trying to control me only taught me how to claim my own power. There was no celebration in her defeat, no gloating from me. Instead, a quiet understanding settled between us. She had learned, perhaps painfully, that betrayal has consequences, but I had learned something far more valuable: the resilience of the human spirit and the power of using hurt as fuel for personal growth. That night, as I walked hand in hand with my husband under the moonlit sky, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The wedding that my mother tried to sabotage had become a testament not to her manipulation, but to my strength and perseverance. I had faced betrayal head-on, turned it into strategy, and emerged triumphant. I smiled, knowing the past could no longer control me. I had turned heartbreak into victory, and in doing so, I discovered a truth that would guide me forever. The people who try to break you often end up building the foundation for your greatest triumphs, and sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well, and living stronger than anyone ever expected.